Welcome to Outreach Programming. I'm Mary Gerasi, and today's guests are from Telework, Tampa Bay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, it's a friendly show. Don't be scared. Let's start out with an obvious question, because I need to know as well. What is Telework Tampa Bay, Jessica, and what was the need that you found to start this program here in Tampa Bay?
Well, Telework Tampa Bay is a program that was implemented through a partnership between the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council and Bay Area Commuter Services. The funding that we received for this program has allowed us to work with employers in Hillsborough and Pinellas County to help educate them on the benefits of telework. And when I say educate them on the benefits of telework, we are encouraging them to start, say, a test program within their business. And what we do for them is provide a lot of one-on-one services to help guide them through the whole implementation process.
Okay, you're losing me here. That's a lot of information. Let's go back a little bit. What is telework? How does you're asking folks to maybe keep more people at home and working instead of on the road and driving in buses and commuting. Is that correct? Was that the impetus behind it?
The impetus behind it, yes, was that. The funding that we received is federal money called congestion mitigation air quality money, and that's the impetus for the program. Is the money wants us to keep people, mitigate congestion and keep people off the roads during peak hours. However, the whole idea behind telework has benefits for the employer, the employee, and for the environment.
And the whole community. If there's less pollution, less car accidents, less traffic problems. So your program is helping guide employers to keeping more folks at home and working out of their houses.
Yes.
How does that work? Now, you're with the national program. Is that correct, Ilham?
Well, I do work nationally, but I'm a telework specialist with Telework Tampa Bay. And telework is really not that complicated to implement. I think one of the essential elements is really getting commitment from the employers that this is a way that they're willing to have their work done. And it takes a lot of trust. It takes the right technology, it takes selecting the right people, and the truth is that up front you've got to do some planning before you actually put a program together.
And it's not for everybody, correct?
No,
what would a perfect business for you be? I started a small business. How do I start? How would I know if I'm appropriate for your program? How would I know where to begin? It sounds like a great program, but I wouldn't know where to begin.
It depends on a lot of factors. First off, not every teleworker works full-time from home. In fact, the median we find is between 2 to 3 days per week. When I started out as a teleworker, I did it 1 day every 2 weeks, and I struggled a little bit with being able to work at home and be disciplined, but gradually became more accustomed to managing my time and more effectively producing the product on a given day. And that's something that we work with employers on. We look at which types of employees, often professional employees can do this. Call centers are often a very good opportunity to send people home to work. And so it's really looking at the personality of the employee, the performance of the employee, the type of work that they do, as well as their location. Some employers actually have situations where they need to retain an employee that has a long commute and is so frustrated that they may leave the job, and the employer needs to make some changes.
And if I can add to that, I think some other aspects that play into selecting the right employees is the manager right as well, because it's got to be a manager who can trust their employees, who knows what they're doing, who doesn't have to be sitting next to the employee to know that they're doing their work.
Right.
In addition to that, the technology needs to work. Technology is a huge enabler today.
I'm going to get back to that, but I think I have a very obvious question. Jessica, you can answer this. What exactly is a teleworker? Can you sum that up? What do they do?
A teleworker does their job, except they're just doing it from home or from, say, a satellite office or something like that. The job isn't any different than what they already have, and it's not specific to any particular position. They're just taking their job and they're transferring it either to home or satellite office.
So it's almost like teleporting as well. I mean, you know, taking your job and implementing it. So let's get specific. Let's say I do some computer programming in my office here, and I do some cold calling and things like that, and I live in Ocala. and I've been driving 68 miles one way every
Wow.
day. How would you set me up to do this? What would you
Well,
do to get me there?
First of all, I would work with your employer to initially make sure that there's buy-in to the program. Because as I said, commitment is key, and you want to make sure that not only top management buys off on this, but also middle managers so that they know that this is a process that they're comfortable with. We'd work with you, your employer, in crafting policies, agreements, so that really everything becomes more formal and protects both the employee and the employer. And as Jessica said, when people work at home, nothing changes. The only difference is really the location of work. So your rights as an employee, your rights as an employer all stay the same. An important element to all of this is that it's not as simple as go home and work now.
It couldn't be that easy, could it?
And we actually work with you to train you to become a good teleworker. We work with your managers so they learn how to manage people who are distributed.
You were a teleworker. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that experience, like you said, having the self-discipline, waking up on time just because you're not being watched or micromanaged. What kind of person does that take? Did you become that kind of person who actually enjoyed the experience?
I needed to change a little bit of my habits. I started in 1987, and at first what I had was a to-read box, and I would take those materials home with me. I'd catch up on my reading, I'd brainstorm for different projects and prepare outlines. And I found what was challenging is to stay away from the dishes and stay away from the vacuum cleaner. Cleaning the house was always tempting, but after
What a guy,
while,
huh?
Yeah.
I haven't cleaned mine in a week.
But quickly, that was not a problem over time. I think that effective managers manage by objective, and they look at the product. And I knew very well my supervisor was not going to allow me to continue to telework if I wasn't going to be able to produce the product.
It sounds like a win-win-win-win-win-win situation.
It really is.
Less wear and tear on the car. Some people don't like being micromanaged. Some people like to do their own thing and have really good organizing skills. It helps our community, helps keep down pollution and traffic. How is the programming working here in Tampa Bay? Are people being responsive? Are you starting out the gate now, fresh and new? What's going on?
We're pretty new. We started in February of 2004, and we've been pretty steady moving along. We've met with many, many employers, and we're really starting to get a nice following. We're probably about right on track. I think we've got about 10 pilots in place.
10 pilots. We've worked with over 80 employers with workshops providing policies and information. We've created a website where employers can download sample policies, look at the issues.
Go ahead and give me that website.
It's teleworktampabay.org. And a variety of information is there, as well as links to other websites for information.
What kind of folks are you getting that are showing interest? What kind of businesses?
Like I said a little bit earlier, it's not job specific. So we've had a lot of different people. We've had hospitals, banks, research groups, nonprofit agencies, environmental agencies. I mean, it's just really run the whole gamut of the different types of businesses.
As well as public sector, which is great
Okay.
because government should lead the way as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
When you do your training, when you look at people objectively, give me a little example of what works really well and what does not work at all. I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, if I bake, I have a baking industry out of my house. I mean, you may come across things you know immediately, this isn't going to work.
I would say that what has become very interesting about teleworking is that it applies to a lot of jobs now, as long as you do it one day a week or once every other day. However, I mean, if you're in a line manufacturing type of industry, obviously it's not applicable to you. However, the administrative officers of that organization, the managers, they can do it. IBM is one of the biggest users of telework.
Wow.
IBM is a manufacturing industry.
Right, it is.
However, their sales force or professionals or managers, they've given up millions of dollars in office space by getting people to work at home.
And Mary, it's a variety of different jobs. I worked with the city of Irvine in California once for a telework pilot, and the city manager said, I want teleworkers from every single department. And we looked at the police department, we looked at public works and thought, how can we do this? And so we actually worked with the police department, talked to some of the detectives, and found out that they have a lot of paperwork to do.
Right.
And we initially put the detectives on the telework arrangement one day every 2 weeks, and they became our biggest champions in the end. They were getting caught up on their paperwork, and it worked well for them, and it continues, and actually is more frequent now.
So you could probably find somebody somewhere within an infrastructure, an already set up structure that could telework at home.
However, keep in mind, it's not for every person. It's not for every job. It's not for every manager. I mean, at best case scenario, it's great for about 25 to 30% of the jobs that we're looking at in the workplace. Some people have to be around others to get their work done. So, and it's definitely not for an employee who's got problems in the workplace. You don't want to send an employee home who's not performing well.
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't even make sense.
Yeah. But you don't turn good employees into bad employees by allowing them to work from home.
That's true. Usually if somebody's a good employee already, sending them home isn't going to change that.
So what do you do with the potential, quote, bad employee? I mean, how do you counsel people on that? When you go into a business to do your consultation and you scan the employees, I'm going to send Mary home, and whoa, not a good call. She shows up late, she doesn't follow through. How do you negotiate that? It sounds like quite a bit of work.
Well, actually, there are two ways to do it. Some organizations, believe it or not, have a simple process in place, which is the employee volunteers, and the manager basically says yes or no.
Okay.
No employee can telework without management approval.
Right, of course.
Some employers do it a little bit more formally, whereby there's a formal application process. The
Right.
employee fills out an assessment, and a manager fills out a the counterpart assessment to it. So you've got documentation showing whether or not this was the right or wrong candidate.
But do you actually come in and do a formal consultation? Like, do you
Yes.
meet the employee? Do you ask them a certain criteria of skills or sets? Or do you take that to the manager and teach them how to look for good telework employees? How does that work?
Really, managers own the program, and that's
Okay,
the only
so
way.
you just go
a
straight through the
company-
manager.
You really have to.
That's correct.
They're the decision makers.
So in your experience, being a telework specialist as well as having participated in telework as an employee, where are you seeing right now? I mean, is this going to be the wave of the future? It sounds so exciting, and it sounds like it's almost a necessity.
It is. I think 1 out of 5 Americans now can work from home at least occasionally. The trends that we've seen is an increase in the part-time teleworking, but a decrease in the full-time teleworking. We at first thought that this was the great option. Everybody
Right.
could work from home.
Sounds good.
But some employers are pulling away. They're missing that team spirit. They're missing working together as a group. So these are some of the trends that we are seeing evolve over time. Some of the most recent interest in telework has been tied to emergency preparedness.
We're going to talk
and a
about
variety
that.
of different issues. And so that's added a lot of interest with federal agencies and with elected officials trying to prompt these programs for different regions.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to ask Jessica that we are inherently prepared for this because of hurricanes,
Absolutely.
flooding, tornadoes. We have a lot of inclement weather. How does having a telework program installed in FEMA's and all the different organizations, a lot of the nonprofits, how does keeping it out of the downtown office that potentially could get damaged, how does that work during the hurricane season?
Well, it's really
Emergency.
probably one of the best options out there. I mean, if you have a telework program in place, tested and in place, that's important. The testing part is important. When something happens like what we just experienced last summer
Right.
with, week after week, we were on hurricane alert, we were not able
Downtown
to go to
shut
work.
down.
Exactly, downtown shuts down, you can't get to the office, your kids are out of school, so you have to stay home.
Right.
If you have a telework program in place, then even if the kids are sent home 2 or 3 days and your office is still open, you can work at home.
Right.
Some parents just aren't given the option. They have to stay home. They don't have a nanny or a daycare situation. And the same is true for other situations as well. It's having something like that in place. If your office closes, if there's flooding downtown and you
Right.
can't get to the office, stay home and work.
Wow.
And it gives people the
Options.
flexibility
It gives
to
them
keep
options.
the business open.
Absolutely.
Instead of
I
closing
never
it
thought
down.
of how significant this would be in a place that, relies very heavily on the weather and weather damage and
Absolutely.
potential weather disasters. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that it works really well for both man-made disasters as well as natural disasters. Because what we saw, in the case of 9/11 is a lot of New
Right.
York-based organizations had to send their employees home, as well as the
Yeah.
federal government.
Yeah.
Many congressional leaders couldn't even get to their offices, and they had to start working at home during both the anthrax scare and the 9/11.
Absolutely. So let me see if I'm saying this correctly. Can you have a potential telework situation set up for your employees, but not necessarily use it until there's a disaster
Yes,
or a
absolutely.
potential problem?
Absolutely. Of course, we'd like to encourage everyone to use it
Yeah.
year-round. However, some employers may choose just to have that as a contingency plan.
Government,
And-
it sounds perfect for
Exactly.
the government to me.
And it's a perfect option. But again, it's the setting it up, planning, and testing it. It needs to be tested so people know how to use it once they need to use it.
And how long would something like that take? Let's say I want to start a telework office. I obviously have to call you. Is there a consultation? Is there a meet and greet? There's a training. How long would this take? It sounds like it might take a little while.
There are a number of steps that we encourage people to go through. We have kind of a menu of items that employers can choose from. They can choose to have us start from the very beginning to the very end with them, or they can pick and choose what they want. But of course, gaining management approval is the first step. And then the second step might be pulling together a steering committee to kind of address all of the issues that you would need to set something like that up.
So a steering committee would be made up of members of the business that are going to sit down and figure out how they want to approach it.
Right. So you might want to pull
Very
in your
good.
IT department, your legal people, your
Sure.
HR, any of the managers that are going to be involved. So everybody knows what's happening, and they all know what they need to do to get these program policies in place, get the computer system ready to go, since people might be accessing it
Right,
from home.
right. Make sure you have the right software and hardware that you can interface. And
Exactly.
send faxes, cell phones.
Telephone situations, exactly.
So you got interest, you had your steering committee agree, then what do you do? Where do you go from there? Do you come into play?
Well, we work with them to develop, the policies for the program and really use the steering committee to develop, I would say it's more of a consensus building process.
Yeah.
Like you said, how are we going to do it for our organization?
Absolutely.
And once we developed, some of the policies.
Protocol.
Protocol, then we have the training. And Stuart, maybe you want to address, evaluation.
Evaluation, it's very important to
Wow,
come back and look
you
and see
really
whether
take it
it's
from
working.
beginning to end, even evaluation.
Absolutely.
That is outstanding.
Yeah, and we can either do that directly for the employer, come in and provide a survey of the employees, do focus groups or individual interviews, or we can provide the tools to the employer. We can provide sample surveys. In some cases, employers come to our workshops and they say, thank you, I have everything I need, and off they go. Others say, come in, we would like a third-party, objective
Yeah.
participant to look at this. One of our goals is to develop some local case examples that we can share with other employers. So after the evaluation, we ask the employer, at their discretion, whether we can use the information in a case study. So,
And it's also a really great tool for us to show employers who might be considering it
Right.
what other folks have done, and we've got it right there on paper. nuts to
Everybody always
bolts.
likes to see a success story. That's
Exactly,
good
exactly.
psychology.
Sure.
right.
But let's also talk about the other side. When does this not work? I'm sure you've set up these things and really worked diligently and find out, ooh, evaluation time. They're not getting it. They're not
Right.
implementing it. People aren't following the rules. What would you say the biggest bug or snafu is in this process?
I think the biggest mistake is not planning for this change. I've had an employer that once looked at this and said, well, we did homework in elementary school. We know how to do this. Let's start next week. Without any consideration of training the teleworkers, selecting the right folks. And they had some difficulties. They had problems with communication. They had the wrong people working from home. And if you have an employee that's not performing in the office, sending them to work from home only invites more problems.
Makes you feel better to get rid of them, but in the long run, it's not productive.
And I really want to, go back to what Stuart said. It's the planning, which is important. And not only planning in terms of, your manpower, woman power, but also the technology. The mistake many employers make is that, the employee goes home and on the first day of teleworking starts figuring out, okay, how will I configure my
And
technology?
it's too late. You just
Right.
lost a couple of
That's
days.
right.
Sure.
That's right.
Right.
So you really want to make sure that the process is seamless from day
Well,
one.
tell me about the technology. I know we can interface on our computers. You have hardware, you have software, you have fax lines. You might have a phone bank if you're doing cold calls. So how do you address the technology with an employer?
The technology with the employer really comes down to what their needs are. There's so many different kinds of technology out there right
Yes,
now.
abundant.
It is. It's very abundant. Most IT people kind of have an idea of what's available out there, but it's also going to depend on what their system is and how
You can
how-
interface,
or
communicate.
not. So it's
Yeah. No, I think that's right on. And what's interesting is that 70% of employers spend zero on actually providing a lot of the technology to the employees, which what that means is employees are using their home computers,
Right.
they're using their DSL,
Wow.
their cable modem. But as employers start implementing full-time programs, then giving that technology becomes crucial. 'Cause
I
you wanna-
actually have a friend that sets up these things, exactly what you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
He goes into a business, he sets up all the phones, all the computers, all the
Right.
interfaces. It's a huge business.
Right. And it's not just about the equipment, it's also about the furniture. I worked with a firm, the Houston Postal Credit Union, and we looked at all the telecommunication needs and the computer needs. And after 3 months, we found the biggest issue was that most employees did not have a separate office or space in their home. And so they were having distractions when kids came home from school,
Right,
not being able
TV.
to put their materials away in a safe place. So we investigated getting what we call an office in a box, which essentially is a cabinet with doors.
I
You have
work
a
in one.
computer in it. Yes.
A large box, of course, but we won't get personal. Tell me about Office in a Box.
But they could provide it for the employees. It was about $1,100. They could put
Nice.
it in their, in their family room off to the side. At the end of the day, they can close and lock the doors, and it worked out well. Now, that's not necessary for every employer, but in their particular situation, it was. It was one of the bigger issues that came up.
Tell me a little bit more about the benefits. We know about the traffic, the pollution, keeping people off the roads, less car wrecks, less auto maintenance, quicker, faster, maybe even a speedier approach. There's got to be more to it than that. It just sounds like there's many layers and levels of benefits
Oh,
here.
absolutely. Employers have seen great productivity gains from people working at home. You just think about how many times you're sitting in your office and you're distracted during the day with somebody
Right.
stopping by,
Chit-chat.
taking 10 minutes of your time. At home, people find that, just the quiet of being at home allows them to concentrate more on their work, and they find that they get their work done a lot more quickly.
I think personally for me, if I had children that came home at 3:30 in the afternoon, if I got up at 6 a.m.,
Yes.
sat on my computer, got a lot of my work done, I could set my schedule from 6 to 3, spend more time with my children, not be so harried coming home, having to make meals, male or female.
And with the caveat being that your manager approves of that schedule and it fits their business needs.
Yeah.
I think both of those need to be addressed.
And classic night owls. I mean, how many of us know people who like to stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning? What if you wanted to work from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m.? I
Right.
mean, to me, it sounds very flexible.
It is. And as an example, one of the employers we worked with, Sterling Research over in St. Petersburg, was faced with issues of employees having long commutes and stress. And they developed a telework program really for recruitment and retention. And 1/3 of their employees can now work from home at least occasionally, 1 or 2 days per week. And the reports from employees are wonderful, that it really helps them reduce their stress,
Wow.
reduce their cost for commute.
Does it help
And-
you lose weight?
Well,
Buy into it.
it could do the opposite.
Imagine all the pilots we would have.
As long as you put a lock on the refrigerator, right?
Yeah.
Actually, Mary, let me give you some statistics.
Sure.
And what we've seen with employers is that on average, productivity goes up about 10 to 20%.
It sounds like it would.
Yeah, absenteeism goes down by 2 to 4 days per year per teleworker. Overhead costs, if you are trying to give up office space, can go down between 25 to 90%.
Wow.
Employees save about
good.
1 to 3 hours a day by not commuting. And guess what they do with the time they save?
I have no idea.
They work more, they sleep, and they get a better balance between work and life.
Wow. It sounds like the perfect remedy for being overworked, stressed, lots of commuting. I mean, the physical stress of having to drive an hour and a half both ways. And Tampa's a commuting kind of town. Folks are coming in from St. Petersburg. We're coming in from Brandon. We're coming in from Ocala. People are making the drive here to
Let me
Tampa.
add something to that. And I would imagine most of you probably already know this, but there's going to be a lot of construction going on our roadways, the
Yes.
I-4 interchange, and then the
already happening.
The Links projects are coming up, which is going to have a major effect on the Memorial Causeway, Selman Expressway area.
Right.
That whole area is going to be under construction for many, many, many years, and that's going to have a major impact on the commute times. So thinking ahead, this might be a good time for businesses to start thinking about perhaps implementing telework programs to allow a little bit less stress and time wasted sitting in traffic.
Right.
So let me begin at the beginning, if I may. How do we get started? How long does it take? What do I need to prepare for? I mean, like you said, not being prepared is a problem.
Right.
I'm going to call you.
Yes.
Give me a little bit about the process, possibly how long it would take, and to implement this thing.
Do you want me to take that?
Absolutely.
All three of you can probably chime in. I'm sure you all have important input on this question.
Normally, you would contact me. I would set up a meeting, come in and have a little discussion, explain the program, find out what it is you want to accomplish with it, blah, 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 blah. Usually, there's about, and this, of course, it depends from employer to employer,
Sure.
about a 3-month, give or take, setup period, and that allows the policies to be put in place. And that's probably the part that's going to take the longest amount of time, is getting your policies in place.
That difficult?
It's not that it's that difficult. It's just once you start the process of meeting, you start finding out, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to get that
Yeah.
covered.
It's time well spent, because really,
Right.
that's, as I said, when you develop consensus amongst your managers that this is our approach, this is how we want to do it. And the more time you spend kind of strengthening that level of commitment, the better a program you're going to have.
And what do you look for in that? What I like that I'm hearing is you have a steering committee. You come up with your own rules. You have your own autonomy here. I think
Right.
people find that very exciting.
You're right. We're not prescriptive. It's not government here to help you.
Right.
It's actually, we can go out, what would you like from us?
Teach you to help
Right.
yourself.
And yes, and we'd be
Exactly.
happy to do any part of a program or simply just allow an employer to access our information off the website. But Jessica's the person that you'll get if you call the
Right.
phone number that we have here.
Sure.
Our website can provide a lot of information and will help with everything or only a little piece
That's
of it.
right.
We'll have it up. So you can go as far as beginning, middle, and end. It sounds like you can take that extra 3 months. What would be a little assistance? Why would I call you for just a small bit of assistance?
You may call to see if we have examples from other organizations that are doing this. So we'd be very happy to provide you with case studies, testimonials from other companies that are doing it. That would be a very small piece.
And we've also had situations where companies have been teleworking. They already have a program in place. They want us to come in and evaluate it. They want us to
Okay.
look at their policies and see if they need to be tightened up.
So even if somebody
So-
else set it up for them, you can come in as the
Absolutely.
consultation specialist.
Exactly, troubleshoot for them.
Troubleshoot. Wow. So it's amazing that so much of this is available.
And at no cost.
At no cost.
At no cost.
Wow.
All of our services are free.
Wow.
And, you know, Mary, I want to go back to something you asked, which is this the wave of the future? Truly, it's not it is today.
It's happening now.
It's happening. We're out of the pilot phases. We know it works.
Wow. And to me, it just sounds like if I was in that position, just something that benefits everybody. Once again, more time with your family, less stress, less wear and tear on the automobile. Gas has gone up so
Absolutely.
expensively. Do you have a hit list of reasons why you should sign
we
up?
so
I'll write it for you because I'm just thinking of 100 right now.
Right. And being prepared for emergencies. I mean,
Right.
that really is so critical.
Absolutely.
After 2004, here
Hurricane
in this community,
season, yeah.
many employers lost 3 to 4 days of work, and that
If
was
not
not
more.
necessary.
If
Right.
not more.
One of our partners lost electricity for a week, and they had a telework program in place, and all employees continued to be productive working from home.
People like to hear that.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're not wasting money, time, or energy.
That's right.
We've got to wrap up. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with that we haven't hit upon today?
I think the main thing is just knowing how to contact us. And
We have all that up for you.
Exactly.
What
And
about
we
you?
want to know how soon you're going to start telecommuting and teleworking. We hope we've convinced you as well.
If I could set up the studio in my house, don't tell my boss, I'd be telling you. Oops. Well, before I get in real trouble, I better close the show. Today's guests have been from Telework, Tampa Bay. Thank you for joining us and keep watching programming.